James, welcome.
Howdy doody, sir.
Nice to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to Real Radio. It's that time again. It's almost new single and new album time.
Yeah, again.
I mean, you do it 10 studio albums in 18 years. That's a fair track record, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, kind of like I'm kind of proud of it, really. I'm basically proud of the fact that we're still in a band together. Because it'd be kind of sad for a bunch of people like us to be dysfunctional with each other, because we've known each other all our lives. So it's really good that kind of like, you know, that we still actually just seek to create things with each other. And, you know, that's kind of heartwarming even for me, I think.
I think I've read it somewhere. People have put it down to the good old-fashioned Welsh work ethic. You've got to keep on doing it.
I don't know, kind of Welsh Presbyterian. I have no idea what denomination it is. But no, I think, you know, kind of like, I mean, there's no chance to have an ego with each other when I've known since I was 5 years old. You know, he knew me when I had like FA Cup years, still got them really. I had National Health specs that were 4 times too big for my head, and I looked like Joe 90. And there's no way that you can have egos with each other once you've known each other for that long. And the same goes for Sean. You know, he's my cousin. I've known him since I was born, literally, and he's virtually my brother. And he knew me when I was still using wet wipes, you know.
Yeah,
so kind of like, I think it's down to that shared experience, and there is a camaraderie there, definitely.
I mean, the new single it's a good old-fashioned pop song, isn't it? It's a big Manics anthem.
It is, yeah.
There's a quote from you that says, this new album is one last shot at mass communication. What does that mean?
Well, I think that kind of like records, albums, music, whatever you want to call it in general, have been diminished in the cultural landscape. You know, people are always talking about the last days of the music industry as we know it. You know, we're all fiddling while Rome burns because of downloading music for free, etc. And there's an element of truth to that. You know, the internet has changed the way that people perceive and actually kind of receive music. And it's downgraded it culturally. I mean, kind of music used to be a massive part of the cultural landscape. I think it's fair to say that for a whole generation, God Save the Queen by the Sex Pistols had as much an impact on them as the Guernica by Picasso had on other people in their generation. Same with Let It Be by the Beatles. You know, that had as much an impact on people as, say, the Mona Lisa did on people in, you know, the Renaissance and stuff. And people might think that's overstating it, but I don't think it is. I really don't, because I know the effect that music had on me. So, knowing that we come from that generation to a degree, and knowing how much music has affected our lives, I think we wanted to make a record that defended the album as an art form, that you're trying to communicate something with, you know, 12 tracks, not just one track that's going to be downloaded. You're trying to keep people's attention. You're trying to actually say that, you know, the album is a testament to where the band are at that moment in time. We're just trying to restate that, I think.
And this is in stark contrast, isn't it, from the last album,
yeah.
Which I guess is a legacy, if you like, to what Richey left behind. Was that an album that you had to get out of your system at some point or another?
I think you've perfectly there. There was a tacit suggestion in the element of how Richey left us the lyrics. He left them with us shortly before he disappeared. So we always thought that, you know, that kind of like there was the tacit suggestion there that he wanted us to do something with them, and he left us with lyrics. And for years and years and years, I think we were too scared to approach them. We were too scared to write music to them, and we were perhaps too scared of the lyrics themselves. But at some point, I think we perhaps put some demons to rest, and we got used to the idea of having responsibility towards those words. And it was almost like an idea whose time has come. At one point, after Send Away the Tigers, which was a real success for us, we realised that there was something nagging us in the back of our heads, and we looked at those lyrics, and it was the first time we had musical ideas to put to the lyrics. So it was an idea whose time had come, and also we knew that there was a responsibility on us to do something with them and to do Richey proud, perhaps. And there was a slightly selfish angle. The selfish angle is that I think we wanted just one more chance to be back in the band with him, which I think people might understand. That's the closest we could get to it, you know. But we knew that was the last chance, really.
And how do you go about the recording process? I know some bands, they go into a studio and they've pretty much got it in their heads exactly how the record's going to sound. Some go in and treat it as some sort of creative process. How do you do it?
I think it used to be like that. I think with songs like Design for Life and If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next, Nick would give me the lyrics, and I would go away and I'd write the music in a separate circumstance. And by the time I'd written the music to the words, I could kind of view what I wanted to happen in the music, and I would go into the studio with a fully formed picture. I think sometimes we still write like that, 50% of the time, but I think now that responsibility is shared across the band. Sometimes I'll come in with an idea, and by the time Nick and Sean are finished with it, it sounds completely different, but much better for it. And I think that's because after 10 albums, we should be better at what we do. And I think in that respect, in terms of it being more collaborative in the studio, and us being a bit more there's a bit more spontaneity involved, I think that it's changed a bit.
You've got some interesting guests too, haven't you, on this album?
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of when you're faced with what's that mean? I think when you get your 10th album, if you make a decision that it's either you're going to reinvent yourself or you're going to celebrate what you've done or what you can do. And I think we took the latter decision. We wanted to celebrate what we're best at. And I think part of that celebration was inviting some of our heroes to be on the record. And we thought it was going to be like the same old school disco memory. You ask a girl to dance and she says no. But people kept saying yes. And we were genuinely, just so kind of blown away by the fact that John Cale, a good South Walian kind of artist, formerly the Velvet Underground, he said yes. Duff McKagan, the bass player from Guns N' Roses, who's one of Nick's bass playing heroes, he said yes. And sort of Ian McCulloch from Echo and the Bunnymen, people kept saying yes, and we thought, right, let's quit while we're ahead, because somebody's going to say no soon.
And I know lots of people, and I'll probably be one of them, who can't wait to hear yourself and Ian McCulloch singing together.
That was interesting. Because Echo and the Bunnymen were the first band that myself, Richey and Sean ever saw live in, I can't remember if it was 85 or 86, in Bristol, Colston Hall. And so to have that person, who was the first rock and roll singer I'd ever seen live in the studio singing with our band and feeling as if he was, and sounding as if he was part of our band, was just such a privilege, But he's still got a famous rapier sharp wit on him. At the end of the day, he was like, it's a good song, Harry Seacombe there, don't worry. I was like, you call me Harry Seacombe? And I kind of like that, that's cool, And you can still just take your part with just one line, which is good.
And there's some interesting guests in the video as well. Who's in that?
Yeah, no, we're trying our hardest in this one, aren't we? Well, after kind of a long time of doing videos, it took me a long time to realise that my acting skills are average. My bone structure is pretty average. And so we got Michael Sheen, good Welsh lad, Oscar nominated Welsh legend, and Anna Friel, who was just graced the video with just beautiful still acting. Really, what she did was just so skillful. And basically the video set in a bit of a kind of Cold War setting where it's two people in an opposing chess game. So there's a bit of the Thomas Crown affair in there. It's a tiny bit of the Kasparov era chess games when the chess game kind of like reflected the Cold War tensions. And there's a scene from a film called Hunger, which it's this bit of that stolen as well. And it was just great to have other people in the video taking the pressure off us.
I mentioned on Twitter that you were coming in today for a chat. We've got some interesting tweets as well. One, bearing in mind we've talked about how the new album and the last one are so much in contrast. Francis Atkinson tweeted me from London. He said, Chris, could you ask James whether they feel they alienate the hardcore fans when they make purposefully commercial records? You've said this is all about the big pop-hit radio singles, this new album.
Undeniably, we are a bit of a strange band in the sense that I do think there are two versions of our band. That's a strange thing to say. It makes it sound like a Marcel Marceau kind of act. But there is the version of the Manics that does Holy Bible and Journal for Plague Lovers, something which has a darker reality to it. And then there is the version that does Everything Must Go and Postcards from a Young Man. I don't know why that is. The only way I can explain why we're like that is because I think we were such music nerds when we were young. I can chart my progression as a kid. My first love was ELO. My second love was kind of like proper indie, obscure indie music. And then I was like a Clash fan. Then I was a Public Enemy fan. Then I was a Guns N' Roses fan. And if I look at my musical history as a child, it was just completely schizophrenic. I think that's reflected in the music that we make. And I think that's why, perhaps another reason why we stay together for so long. Whenever we get bored with one version of the band, we just go into the other version and we inhabit that one. And it might alienate some people, to answer the question, it might do. But I think sometimes it fuses together. I think with Design for Life, that was something that we'd always tried to do. We'd always tried to distill our lyrics. We have a bit of a social conscience sometimes. And we write about a lot of political stroke cultural things that really inspire or disturb us. And we try to kind of let, a powerful melody infiltrate that, so it'll infiltrate an audience. That's just the way we work. And sometimes I think it works. If you tolerate this, your children will be next is not the easiest title to say, but it was number one. So it alienates some people, but I think some people understand that it is the best way to be the band that we want to be.
So, I mean, there is this body of work now that you've amassed over the last nearly 2 decades, and it's a question that Debbie James from Cwmbran tweeted about choosing Setlist. You're just about to start a UK tour.
Yeah.
To promote the album and the single. How do you choose? Some songs presumably pick themselves. Some songs you have to do.
Well, in reference to the question before, I do think that sometimes there is a slight vaudevillian kind of aspect to the Preachers, because when we play a concert, we want to entertain people. We're not quite like Radiohead, who I have endless admiration for, but we'll always play songs that people want to hear. Motorcycle Emptiness, You Love Us, If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next, Design for Life, Your Love Alone Is Not Enough. We'll always play those songs because I can't not shortchange an audience that just some of the audience just wants to jump around. And I've been that audience, so it does pick itself. But we do have arguments. We do have arguments about it. Sometimes there are some songs that there are lobby groups within the group itself, and I go, no, I want to play Sleep Flower, and Nick will say, no, that's rubbish, I hate that song, I want to play La Tristesse de Rire instead. And that's kind of fun, really. It's cool. But it does pick itself. You always got to play Motorcycle Emptiness.
And there's interesting venues on the tour as well. It's a step back to a good old
theatre rock and roll.
Yeah. Why so?
Well, it kind of these days, any musician is confronted with the question, God, your industry's in a state, and how do you feel about people downloading your music for free? So you're confronted with the fact that you're not as in control of your own music as you used to be. But there's one thing about being a band which you're completely in control of, and that is when you go on tour and play live. And that's a good feeling, because you still feel as if you're part of rock and roll tradition. You're aware that you're playing certain venues in Britain that, Ziggy era David Bowie played in, that The Clash played in, that Thin Lizzy played in. You're aware that you're still kind of doing the same traditional thing that all those great artists did. And that might sound a bit trite, but it's a good feeling to know that you're still in control of something about what you do within the music industry. And also it's good to feel as if you're part of tradition.
And they're proper live shows, aren't they?
They are.
They're not like being in an arena with 15,000 other people. They are. That's a proper live show.
There's going to be no fire breathing or trampolines or anything. Me doing my one-legged spin kind of thing. But
one venue that it's lovely to see on your tour is the Newport Centre.
Yeah,
which used to be, that was the place everybody played, wasn't it?
It was on the circuit.
It was on the circuit, and of late it's just been, pretty much ignored by everyone.
And it's strange because you're right, you're absolutely right. I've seen some brilliant gigs there. I remember one of the best gigs I saw there was the Black Crows on the Southern Harmony Musical Companion Tour. There's the legendary Smiths gig there, which turned into a riot. I've seen so many gigs there. And I don't think we've ever played a bad gig there, and there's not many venues I can say that about, And we played a gig there 3 years ago, and it was brilliant. It was just brilliant. And Newport's just kind of, it's got that kind of, still got that kind of fierce working class vibe to it. It's, if the Green Bay Packers were like, a Welsh American football team, so to speak, they'd be based in Newport. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's got a good, Newport gig's always got a good vibe to it.
You touched on it a couple of moments ago, and I was going to ask you anyway. We talk of of downloading music these days, and is it a worry to you that there is the danger now of breeding a generation of kids who think that it's their right to download music for free?
Well, it's not a danger. It's a reality. Of course, any answer I give is going to be seen as too old school and kind of reactionary. That's the accusation that my answer will probably get, but I'll give you my answer anyway. I do think it's dangerous for music itself. I think it's my dad's a socialist from his head to his toes, and even he can't understand why music should be for free. And I just no intelligent person has ever given me a reason why it should be for free, and it does damage music on a couple of levels. But the main one is that bands like the Beatles at the start, they were bankrolled by EMI, so they had the best studio in the world, Abbey Road. They had the best producer and arranger in the world, George Martin, and they had a lot of time to record those records, and those records sounded brilliant because the Beatles were brilliant, but because the record company had lots of money to make them realise their creativity and their ambition. And now the record company hasn't got the money to say you can go to Abbey Road and you can have George Martin or the modern day equivalents. So it's the same as saying to Martin Scorsese, that kind of like, you're gonna have to make The Aviator on a quarter of the budget, and it just wouldn't be as good. So all my favourite records have had great artistry involved, which in the respect that it's not just about the musicians, it's all about the people that help you create it. London Calling by The Clash, that was recorded in Wessex Studios, one of the best studios in the world at that time, and it had Bill Price, the best engineer in the world at that time, recording that record. It would have still been a good record if it hadn't been done in Wessex and recorded by Bill Price, but it was realised to its perfect degree. So records don't sound as good anymore, and that's all nerdy stuff, but that's one level that it affects music on.
No, you're right, and London Calling is a perfect example, because not only is it one of the all-time great records, but as soon as you mention the title or you hear it, in your head you can see the sleeve.
Yeah,
you can see the single sleeve.
You can.
A lot of it's because, isn't it, you can't hold it now. In music, you can't. If you could hold it in your hand. We saved our money and we went to the record shop, and we spent hours there, and we browsed and we bought and we owned.
I don't expect everybody to understand mine and your memories, kind of thing. But yeah, you're absolutely true. There was a tactile nature to the whole experience of buying a record, because you would save up 2 to 3 weeks' money, and you'd go to your local record shop, which was Martin Luther Records in Blackwood High Street. You'd know the person behind the desk. They'd pre-order the record for you, and you'd give all your money in coins and pound notes and everything and all that across, and then you'd scour the actual album sleeve for where it'd been recorded, the T-boy, the assistant engineer, the engineer who designed it, and there was a whole kind of there was more of a homespun feeling about rock and roll. You actually realised it wasn't just about the songs and the musicians. There was an aesthetic behind it all. It meant more than just the music itself, especially with records like London Calling, because you had all the quotes and all the handwritten sleeves inside, and all the little scrollings which had cryptic messages in it, and all the pictures were stylised because there was a photographer called Penny Smith that took the pictures. This is getting way too train spotty now, but there was an whole aesthetic around it, so it made it more than just music.
Yeah, and with your album just about to be released now, inevitably there'll be critique and there'll be comment and reviews. How close do you get to what other people think? Does it bother you?
It does, yeah. You get really close to it, because I grew up in Pontefraith, which is close to Blackwood, and it was definitely disconnected from the record industry, which was in London. So a lot of the records I was reading about in The Enemy and The Melody Maker and Sounds magazine, I would only hear these records a month after they'd been reviewed. So I had a notion of what these records sounded like through the journalism, rather than actually hearing the records for a long time. And I think that's why we tapped into music journalism being important. Yes, sometimes it could be vicious, sometimes it could be bang on, sometimes it could laud the music, sometimes it could criticise it. But it was important because it was somebody else's interpretation of what was going on within that record. So we grew up with music journalism as being really important, that it could tell you things that perhaps you wouldn't discover by listening to the record. So therefore, if a good review is important to you, you've got to read the bad reviews as well, because at least 20% of the time, a bad review can teach you a couple of lessons about yourself. I mean, I've read a review once or twice. I won't tell you about which record or what, but I've read the review and I've gone, oh God, they're right.
Really?
And that teaches you something. So,
and everybody these days, we were chatting just before we started recording about the electronic world and social networking and all that kind of thing. Now, with blogs and Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of thing, everyone's a critic, aren't they? Everyone has their say.
And I think, that's always been catered for, though. I mean, I grew up in a fanzine age, and fanzines are really important. There were lots of great journalists came out of the fanzine scene. But I still believe in editorial control. I still believe in accountability as well. I believe in, if criticism is going to be so harsh and so personal, then at least tell me who that person is. I want to see the name at the bottom of the review, so I can put it in my black book. But I do believe in accountability. If I'm going to criticise something in a very harsh sense, I'll just put my name to it. So I think there's a certain cowardice there. But fanzines used to be what you would call keepers of the flame. And fanzines add that element of perhaps going farther than the publications like Enemy and Melody Maker. So that kind of spirit's always been around. But fanzines still really, really cared about the music. They weren't just saying it for effect.
Yeah, I get the feeling that you're quite keen for the world now to hear this new album, to hear what you've got to say this time.
I am, yeah, because it's always interesting to see which people are going to try and give you a good kick into. You always identify yourself by identifying your enemies and your targets. But I'm generally excited to see if it gives people. You're always excited to see if the music gives your audience the same buzz that it gave you making it. There is a bit of narcissism there, undoubtedly.
Just let me finish on a couple of tweets, because they've come from the other side of the world. Karina Longo and Maria Jose Mitchell, both from South America, different parts. Karina says, I'm a Brazilian fan. I'm coming to the UK in October to see the Manics.
Oh, bless her.
I'd like to know if they are thinking of coming over. And Maria says, please can you tell the boys they have fans in South America too? I'm in Chile. Is that a part of the world you've visited before? Never
been there, and we've always had kind of dreams of playing down there, actually. But the hard and fast rule is that if you get an invitation to play somewhere, then you end up going usually. And like I say, in the last 4 years, we've been to places like Croatia, Latvia, Hungary, Romania, Russia, Poland, places that we'd never played before. But because we were invited there, we've been there. We've never really had any concrete offers from South America. So tell those dear people that get onto the local promoters, because if we get an invite, we usually go.
There's two there at least. They'll be in the audience. I can't let you go without asking you about a new season for the Cardiff Blues. I saw the Cardiff Blues hat on the way in.
Well, I should have hidden it, shouldn't I?
Because this is important stuff now, rugby, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a hard transition last year down to Leckwith. Again, we seem to be beating the same drum, but we all seem to be trying to swim against the tide of people destroying tradition. And of course, there was a massive tradition of Cardiff Blues, as we call them, playing at the Arms Park. And it took a lot of getting used to being at Leckwith last year. But I've got my season ticket this year, and I'm going to give it another go at Leckwith. And yeah, if truth be told, I loved winning the Challenge Cup. I thought because it's the UEFA Cup of rugby, so to speak, or the Europa League as they call it now. But I really want to win the Magnus League. That's kind of frustrating for me. Sometimes I don't think the Blues set enough store by trying to win their own league, and it's a good league. It's a hard league. If you look at the head-to-heads between the English Premiership and the Magnus League, the head-to-heads, we're in front in the Magnus League. So what's the shame in going all out to try and win your own league? Because if you ever got any design to win the Heineken Cup, surely the best stepping stone is winning your own league. So that's why I'm desperate to win the Magnus League. I really, really want it. And I'm desperate to fall in love with Leckwith. I don't mind the place, but I miss the old burger stand at Arms Park,
It's that getting used to the new...
It is.
The new school, isn't it?
It is, yeah. You feel it. But they've got new beanie hats this year, Cardiff Blues, so the merchandise is looking up a bit.
Winning you over. Hey, it's been good talking to you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Gotcha. It was a pleasure, sir.
Good luck with the album. We love the single. We're playing it loads. It's a terrific song.
Cheers, buddy.
We will no doubt see you in Newport Centre in October.
I'd love to see you there.
Cheers, James.
Take care, mate.